There really are very few organisations that have the ability to impact as many lives for the better as the British Asian Trust. And we always have to remember that changing lives is why we are here. Of course, it's great to enjoy evenings like tonight, but we do this for a reason. Because whilst we're sitting here this evening, there are millions of people across South Asia whose lives have been destroyed by the COVID pandemic. Children orphaned after the loss of their parents. Lives affected forever from schools being closed for so long. Millions suffering from the mental health impact of COVID. A predicted huge increase in child trafficking, child labour, and child sexual abuse. And whilst we all talk about being double vaxxed or triple vaxxed, because of global vaccine inequity, there are still millions of people across the region who can't get a vaccine at all. The British Asian Trust exists to do something about these situations, to end poverty and disadvantage, and to give everyone in the region hope and optimism and ambition. And this has never been more important than it is today as the region recovers from the horrendous impact of COVID-19. The last 2 years for us have been about response, recovery, and rebuilding. How different the world felt when we last came together 2 years ago for that memorable evening with Katy Perry. Within weeks, the world went into lockdown. And as you'll all remember, across South Asia, schools closed and millions of migrant workers lost their jobs and spent days and days walking home from cities to villages. We responded immediately, and together with His Royal Highness, we launched our first COVID emergency appeal. We were delighted to raise £1 million, and in total we were able to provide emergency support to more than 140,000 people across the region. But as you've heard a little tonight, our focus wasn't only on the South Asia region. Here in the UK, as we all know, British Asians were amongst those most severely affected by COVID. But at the same time, it was British Asians who were at the forefront of the response here in the UK. Doctors, medical staff, care workers, fundraising, providing food and PPE. It was quite incredible to see, and it made me extremely proud as an honorary British Asian. To recognise these efforts, we launched the British Asian Heroes campaign, which was acknowledged by both HRH and the Prime Minister. Many of you will remember we also ran the Big Curry Night In to support curry restaurants up and down the country. And we worked closely with the UK government to help increase vaccine take-up in the BAME community, running a major event with HRH, Ada Poonawalla and Nadeem Zahawi on the same day that many of our celebrity ambassadors joined hands with Adil Ray to air a video that was broadcast on all the major news channels. A year ago, we were all starting to feel a little more optimistic about the situation. But as we've been reminded this evening, then came the worst period of all, the oxygen crisis in India. For 10 days, we were all haunted by the dreadful, dreadful images of people dying in the streets simply because they couldn't get oxygen. Within 24 hours, we launched our Oxygen for India emergency appeal. And we were absolutely gobsmacked that more than 35,000 people donated to that appeal and helped us raise over £7 million. We delivered nearly 5,000 oxygen concentrators to hospitals and health clinics in the hardest to reach parts of the country, with it being estimated that over the course of their lifespan, those concentrators will benefit more than 3.3 million people. Our oxygen appeal then evolved into an India Recovery Fund, which we were delighted to launch in partnership with the CBI, and is focusing on increasing access to vaccinations, helping to rebuild livelihoods, and supporting the mental health of vulnerable children. That fund has now raised more than £3.5 million, on top of the £7 million we raised for oxygen. And we're incredibly grateful to Accenture, BT, Waterloo Foundation, Finalex, Croda Foundation, and many others for their support. As you've heard, last year also saw our second aid match appeal, thanks to the amazing support of our ambassadors, including Katy Perry, our campaign reached more than 100 million people. And you've heard that the highlight very much was the Palace on Wheels cycling event led by Rohit Chadha and Bobby Ahluwalia, who, as you've heard, managed to get HRH on a bicycle. And if you want to win that bicycle, it's one of the prizes in tonight's auction. That appeal raised £2.6 million, with a further £2 million matched by the government's FCDO, all of which will provide jobs to thousands of women in Pakistan as they rebuild their lives after the pandemic. So it's been quite a remarkable year for the Trust. And as we look to the future, we're in such a strong position to build even larger and more impactful programs. As you've heard, we have become genuine global pioneers in the social finance space. And through this, we're seeking to change the face of international development, driving a focus on impact, outcomes, data, and evidence, all of which is sadly lacking in many parts of the charity world. We already run the world's largest education development impact bond. We've just launched, as you've heard, a $14.4 million skill impact bond. And we're also working in partnership with the Asian Development Bank and others to try and develop the first ever impact bond in Pakistan, focused on girls' education. And as India emerges from COVID and the continuing school closures, we're also launching a $25 million back-to-school outcomes fund, which will help improve foundational literacy and numeracy for over 1 million children. In addition to those social finance programs, our other programs continue to scale and achieve greater impact. In the next year, our priorities include getting our much-awaited program in Bangladesh up and running, continuing to grow our groundbreaking mental health program in Pakistan, where, in partnership with the CareTech Foundation, we've already provided mental health services to 240,000 people. We'll be delivering the fantastic renewed partnership with BT that was agreed just last week that will provide almost £3 million for a major program in India supporting hundreds of thousands of adolescent girls. And perhaps most ambitiously of all is our $50 million partnership with the Children's Investment Fund Foundation that over the next 10 years will see us significantly reduce the prevalence of child labour, child marriage, child trafficking, commercial sexual exploitation of children, and online child abuse in India. Our plans for the next year sound incredibly ambitious, and they are incredibly ambitious, because we are the British Asian Trust. And just like every single successful British Asian entrepreneur in this room this evening, we are never truly satisfied with where we are, because we know we can always be more successful. And we have to be more successful, because the challenges in the region continue. In the aftermath of the pandemic, we are needed more than ever, and we need to be more ambitious than ever before. We can achieve these ambitions, but we can only do so if people believe in us and support in us. This organisation is genuinely blessed with the support we have, and I'm truly grateful to every single one of you, our trustees, advisors, Founder Circle members, and all other supporters with us this evening. It's an enormous privilege to be a part of this amazing organisation and the truly incredible British Asian community. Together, we have the ability to make this the most exciting and impactful organisation in the country. Together, we really can change the world for millions of people. Thank you all very much indeed, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.